I am Jeff Foxworthy, and welcome to Gamekeeper Podcast. If you want to learn more about farming for wildlife and habitat management, then, buddy, you are in the right place. Join the Gamekeeper crew direct from Mossy Oak Land Enhancement Studio as they discuss the latest wildlife and habitat management practices, news, and, of course, hunting. There's no telling what you'll learn, but I'm going to tell you, I bet it's interesting. Enjoy.
We're live in 3, 2, 1.
Here we are, West Point, Mississippi. Summer's getting started. We're all piled in the Gamekeeper studio, and I'm looking around. We got a motley crew today.
I take offense to that.
Yeah, Toxie's down there at the end, and we've got Ronnie Cuss Strickland sitting in here with us.
Hey, I was minding my own business. I brought Toxie a bottle of barbecue sauce, and he ran me in here. So
That's right.
I'm not sure why I'm here, but I'm glad to be here. This is a big deal right here.
It is. We need you for the discussion.
Yeah, we do.
Yes.
You're going to add a lot of value to this, and Dudley, you got a smile on your face.
Well, it's just one of my favorite times of year.
Well, you just been on vacation.
Not really.
You were gone for
What-
4 or
Just
5
a couple.
days.
Just
What
a
do you
couple
con-
days.
What do you consider vacation? Is that like downtime? I bet Dudley didn't get much downtime.
It was at the lake.
Well, we went on a family reunion trip with the Phelps clan to Lake Oconee. We had a good time.
That's a beautiful lake.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Did you listen to some yacht rock radio?
You know, I requested yacht rock, but my aunt put it on the vinyl channel, the oldies or whatever.
That's close. That's close. A
You
little
catch
more
it?
rock.
Hey, did you catch any bluegills?
We fished a lot and did not have much luck. I couldn't believe it.
Yeah. Hey,
It was a full moon and everything.
Yeah. My daddy's looking down at me and my fishing prowess, shaking his head, going, "Where did I go wrong? I am not a good fisherman."
His daddy could catch it for now. He'd catch fish out of a bucket.
Oh, he was something.
Yep.
So, looking over here to the right on the guest couch, we've got none other than Dr. Bronson Strickland.
Boom.
And it's been a while, Bronson.
It has been. It's been a few months. It seems like. I just got back from a little R&R as well, Dudley. I caught some red snapper.
Oh, wow.
Okay.
And every year I do that, I realize how much older and out of shape I'm getting from reeling those things up. And now the frustration of, I think about 25% or so of the fish we almost landed.
Get eaten by a shark.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You pull it up about 100 feet and you can see it and it's close and the shark comes up and takes it. So that
Yeah,
was
the tax
frustrating.
man.
Yeah.
Yep.
But that was fun.
Wow.
They're everywhere.
Yeah, they are.
So, that's got to affect the snapper quota in some kind of way.
Oh, they don't. You know.
They don't.
I mean, they
count
can't
that-
keep up with that, but
No.
that's dead fish.
Yeah, that's right.
Since they put snapper quotas on, and I'm not an expert, but I listen to people that go, there's not a big shortage of snapper right now. So,
Yeah, I think it's turned around. I think the regulatory measures
yep.
5+ years ago, I think they're working. It just takes time, but I think that population's rebuilding.
So, just like everything that we talk about in here, it's amazing. Fish can be in the Gulf can be managed.
That's right.
And there's biologists like you, Bronson, people that have studied it and know what's going on. It's and
Again and again, it blows my mind. I mean, I remember thinking about how could people with sticks and strings and a musket wipe out bison? It's not possible. Or shoot our turkeys down so low they're almost extinct. And they did, and they could. And how could people fishing, in fact, especially Gulf fishing would be, or saltwater would be for me, like speckled trout, maybe redfish, stuff like that. And they did.
Yeah.
And so it takes what we talk about, the system, checks and balances. It has to be if we love this stuff. So that's amazing.
That's right.
How you would never think they could catch enough red snapper. You reel them up out of 100 feet to make a difference, but they do.
I'm just glad we've got, Mississippi State and other universities like that are putting out young people that are going to work for these conservation departments that are able to that make scientific, have opinions or have studies, have research where they can make scientific decisions about what's going on.
That's right. They care about the resource. They enjoy every aspect of it. Monitoring, going out and doing those surveys, they get a kick out of that. Enjoy it, and then taking it back and making regulations. That's what they love. That's what they devoted their life to do.
I bet that's a sore subject down on the Gulf Coast though when they start regulating how many fish a guy can catch.
Oh, that's a big deal, especially the snapper thing. the drama between the commercial people and the recreational folks. That's like a 2-hour long rabbit hole conversation.
Well, look, the one they just got to realize. I mean, that's a tough who gets priority of this and that, but they're all in the same boat. It's in no one's best interest to lose the resource or to severely hurt the commercial person more than anybody, because the recreational guy would flip over and catch something else. But we're all in it together.
You and your grandsons, are y'all out there on the pond a lot these days?
Yeah, well, we've been catching some brim, but a year and a half ago, whenever it was, I stocked it with 357-inch fingerling catfish and been feeding, just leaving it alone, not even looking at the pond. Test the water every once in a while. And I can't catch one of them catfish on a bet. I'm telling you, it's the most humbling thing. My dad was a pretty good fisherman. He taught me a lot of stuff. And I physically can't catch one of those catfish on a rod and reel.
You can't call your buddy.
I think so. I hadn't been there. When the feeder goes off, there's so much rippling, you can't really tell because where the sun sits out there.
Your buddy Dieter can't help you out on that?
I was thinking about calling him. But anyway, I resorted to a trot line 10 days ago, and I had them boys out there and showing them, because they didn't know anything about a trot line. That's a good life skill. You need to have it. So we put that trot line out, and I baited it with liver. It was the closest thing I could find. It may not be the best bait. But anyway, Matt was up there. He was getting the hang of it. Cranky, the youngest one, he wouldn't touch that liver. And I was like, what's wrong with you? He said, hey, Pop, everybody's different. I can't handle that liver. But anyway, we checked it the next day, not a fish, not a catfish. The last time this happened, I was talking to Toxie, and him and this old trapper told me, he said, you got otters. And I went, no offense, but I've never seen an otter out there. And I got the trapper back out there, and he caught 9 in 2 weeks.
Oh, they'll wipe them out. 9 will wipe your pond out.
He said when you feed them like that, he said you just putting them on a silver platter. And he said an adult otter will eat 5 to 6.5 pounds of fish a day.
Yep.
Per otter.
Voracious.
They just wiped you out. So.
Yeah, and I'm told that sometimes that they'll just kill them just for the sport of killing them.
Really?
They'd kill them and just eat the brains. Bronson, have you ever heard that?
I've heard of it as well. I don't know for certain.
They're bad. When
Remind me not to take a nap on the pool bank.
Yeah. Well, yeah. And so, when Don and Barry were promoting, if you really want to grow big bass, you've got to put a fence around that pond to keep the otters out. And that was one of their requirements.
It's crazy how they could be in a pond. Like I said, they probably are. I've got the pond behind my house, and I've got all kind of holes in the dam, and beavers built stuff. And I've seen a couple of like nutria rat stuff. I'm back there at daylight and dark all the time. I go back there at night, flip on the spotlight. I never, it's like nothing's there. It's crazy. But you can see the work in the tracks, in the trails.
They're slick too. They don't leave a slide, and they'll carry that stuff off. It's hard to find the sign. They call it a toilet or something like that. They'll drag that fish out.
Yeah, a lot of times you can see the scales when they're crossing over the dam. The fish scales from their poop.
That's my story for the grandsons.
We'll
the otters ate them.
Yeah, we'll have to find somebody at Mississippi State that's an otter expert and learn about them.
This topic today with him is another example. It's like when you start living your life on the land and you're a gamekeeper, it's like nature's trying to take away everything you do. It's crazy. It's not just 1 or 2 here and there. We're talking about a couple here, but we're going to talk about a big one with him.
Yeah. So look, why don't we start on down this road? We want to learn about EHD. And first off, can you tell us what that stands for?
Epizootic hemorrhagic disease.
That's a mouthful.
Say that fast 10 times.
I don't think I can.
So, Country Boy, 25 years ago, we found one, and they said it had blue tongue. Is that the same thing?
Yeah, yes and no.
Okay.
So it's within the same family of viruses. So there's hemorrhagic disease viruses and blue tongue viruses. And so instead of saying that it's all EHD, it's kind of been shortened just to say HD. You'll see that sometimes, HD. That just means within the family of hemorrhagic disease viruses. That's EHD as well as blue tongue. We can't tell if you find an affected deer or a dead deer. We're going to have no idea. It takes a laboratory to determine what it was. So the manifestation of the virus is exactly the same.
They die from the same cause.
Pretty much,
They
yeah.
pretty much bleed to death.
That's exactly right. That's the hemorrhaging of the
Right.
hemorrhagic disease.
So that leads me to the next question. Well, what is the difference between the two as far as, how does it spread?
It spread the same way.
So the flies, the midge
Right.
flies.
Right. It's the scientific name is Culicoides. That is the genus, but basically it is a gnat or a no-see-um. And within that, there's a lot of those different gnats, but there's one or two that specialize on deer. And so they are the vector of the disease. They're the ones that they get a blood meal on an infected deer, and spread it like that. So that's the role that they play.
Okay.
I'm not an EHD expert, but I'm a wildlife biologist and I'm a deer biologist, and so this issue comes up all the time. But I'm not a virus expert by any stretch of the imagination.
But you did stay at Holiday Inn Express.
Yeah, he
last
did.
Two nights in a row.
2 nights in a
Two
row.
nights in a row. Yeah.
Well, it's getting to be about that time when we need to start watching for it, isn't it?
That's right.
Because Fred Law, Fred.
Yes.
I mean, I saw him post a couple of days ago where he's found a couple of deer down in a pond that couldn't get out and were struggling, and he was like, "Oh goodness, does anybody know what's going on?" And everybody was saying blue tongue and EHD.
That's
Very
in
well could be.
South
A little
Alabama.
early.
It's Bullitt County,
I was gonna say,
Alabama.
isn't it a bit
A
early?
little early, but could be. Yeah.
But he said it's been really dry and really hot down there.
Yeah. So that the conditions like that aren't really affecting the deer. It would be affecting most likely the population levels of Culicoides. So they're going to have a better hatch. Y'all talk about all the time about recruitment and poult survival with turkeys and so forth. So some of these conditions are just more conducive to having a stronger hatch reproduction of these.
So like a
Culicoides.
wet spring where there's a lot of water where they can reproduce.
It's not as much, so don't think of a mosquito. It's not like having eggs in water. Mosquito needs to have that. It's more like mud,
Okay.
things like that. So, a really severe drought may be bad, and a really, really wet spring flooding in the Delta may not be conducive either. It's kind of that in-between mud flat
Right.
kind of environment. But probably, Bobby, I guess back to your question of why is it a big deal every year and so much misunderstanding about it, is in the South, I think this is just really interesting, and we've all learned a lot about viruses the past couple years. So this is a virus. And in the southern U.S., from Florida to Texas, our deer herds are confronted with this virus every single year. Might be a particular strain of it, may vary, but these viruses are circulating in the Southeast all the time. Because of that, deer build up an immunity. So once the deer gets the disease, if they don't die from it, they're going to develop their immune system. They're going to develop the antibodies. And they're more or less for the rest of their life going to be immune to either the HD family of viruses or the blue tongue family of viruses. And does will even pass those antibodies on to their fawns. And so our deer are just walking around with pretty good immunity unless they get the word, from COVID, the novel virus, unless they get a novel strain of it. And so in the Southeast, we do have deer that die of EHD every single year, but the numbers are minuscule compared to other parts of the country where the virus is novel. And so that's the big difference when you get to the Midwest and the Iowa and the Illinois and Indiana, and those numbers are true, where we lost 30% of our deer, 50% of our deer. That can absolutely happen. But it's because those deer have no immunity or no antibodies. They have had several generations of deer that have not been confronted with the virus. And so they suffer the acute form of it, and within, 3 days, 5 days, something like that, they die. The others probably were, and there's probably some genetic element to this, were confronted with it and were able to live through it. And I'm just going to go back to our example with COVID. We all know situations where, even within a family, some people had a hard time with the virus, unfortunately, Some people went to the hospital. Unfortunately, we all know some people that passed away. But a lot of people could, get sick and handle the virus. Same way with the chronic form of EHD. These deer lived through it. They got a temperature. They felt bad. Showed signals or signs like hoof sloughing is one of those things a biologist always asks on the heart or the hoofs. That is basically they were suffering from a temperature and feeling so bad, their fingernails stopped growing.
Wow.
And then when it started growing again, you see that line of demarcation and it sloughs off. But anyway, the ones that lived through it, now they have immunity to it. And those does are going to pass it on to their fawns.
Wow.
And so then you might go 5+ years or 10 years and not have any problem. And then all that immunity kind of goes away. Virus comes in again and you have a big outbreak.
Okay.
So one question I have is there, I'm not even going to say somebody said this, could be just wives' tale. Is there any consistency that it affects more does than bucks, or more any particular size, weight, age that die eat more easily or at all, or is it just non-discriminate?
Toxie, there could be. I've never seen that before. Equal opportunity killer.
Okay.
Yeah.
Why is it worse in the Midwest as far as 30 to 50%? And we hear about it every day. Why up there more so than down here in the South?
It's just that history of immunity. It's just that because that virus is not making it up there every single year, they aren't building up the antibodies or the resistance to it. And so, again, it's like getting confronted with COVID now after you've had COVID a few times versus the very first time you got it. It may hit you harder.
So go ahead.
Well, yeah, and then, human epidemiology or whatever versus deer. But typically what is so dangerous for us with any virus is not the virus itself, but our body's reaction to it. Mm-hmm. And I wonder if that's similar with this. Is it the deer's reaction to it? Because, so many times, even I remember older Dr. Miller saying, the virus literally is your reaction to it. So that's why steroids or, things like that are so effective or help or whatever, keep your body from not overreacting to the virus.
Yeah.
I'm just wondering, is that what happens with this virus in deer? What causes? I know obviously they hemorrhage, but what other than that, what's going on?
The physiology is way over my head, but just things like you have the hemorrhaging, and of course you're going to have ulcers on some of them.
Right.
It'll just be an awful look where half the tongue will look broken in two. Just had this really intense ulcer. Swelling, the sac around their heart will take on fluid. Congestion in the lungs, scarring, ulcers, and then scarring in the lungs. So I remember a buck we had in the deer pens a long time ago that lived through EHD. He made it through that year, but he died the following year, and necropsy just showed that EHD and the scarring in his rumen had just really diminished his capacity to process food effectively. So there's a lot of things, Toxie. That's a good question. And a physiologist or a virus expert may pick up 20 different things of how it could impact a deer.
Right.
There's probably not a clear-cut answer here. There's a right and a wrong answer here. But if you've got a property and you encounter a deer that looks like it's got what you've just described and suffering, should a guy put it out of its misery or just say, man, maybe that deer will live? Or
legally, what you're supposed to do is you've got to stand back and let it live. But what you can do is contact your state wildlife agency.
Right. That's what.
And you could let them know that they can start monitoring, do we have an outbreak in this region? And then if a conservation officer or someone came and saw that, they may choose to put it out of its misery. But also keep in mind, some of the deer, I don't know what fraction, 50% or 10%, but some of the deer that may be, laying on the edge of the water, remember that they've got a temperature.
Right.
They're just hurting really bad and have a temperature. Some of those may live through it. Mm-hmm. So everyone you see laying down like that may not be destined for death, although a good proportion of them will be.
So if they do make it, if you if you took them out of the herd, then they don't have a chance to pass on the genes of being able to handle
Or the
that.
antibodies.
So-
Right.
Yeah,
They don't
yeah.
spread the virus except through this gnat or fly or whatever.
That's
so
right.
what I was getting at, you're not like this super contagious deer is going to get all my other deer sick. And there's no rush to have to kill them because of that.
Right.
I mean, it's one more deer a fly mite could eat from or whatever, but they probably, I mean, they had to get it somewhere besides the deer to start with to give it to deer. So I was just trying to put out there for people, don't panic that you need to kill this deer to protect your other deer either.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I wouldn't do that.
Yeah. So let me back up. I may have misunderstood something, and I'm prone to do that. But you talked about this virus traveling north. I remember we had a guy from Mississippi State, and I can't think of his name, but he was explaining how the armyworms started in South Mississippi and rode the wind currents north. I didn't know that.
They
Learned
march.
that.
That's why they call them armyworms. They march north.
So does this virus start in the South and move north every year?
Yeah, and there's, I think in 5 more years or 10 more years, because of genetics and the way we can sample now, I think this will probably get mapped out a lot better. But there's probably some overwintering of the virus that occurs along the coastal bend, even maybe down into Central America or Mexico. And so I think it's just a process of it's going to take time, that there is a reservoir of the virus either in the gnat, the culicoides, that's not going through a freeze, that it can overwinter, or infected animals, but that's only going to be in these warmer environments where no freezing takes place. And then just that process of building and building. Now the gnat goes to another deer, infects another gnat, feeds on that deer, and it just moves north in that regard.
So hard freeze like they have in the Midwest knocks it back.
Knocks it back.
So maybe I don't know how long it takes. Maybe this crazy sudden, we'll see. I mean, I don't know if there's anybody propped up to actually get quantifiable data from this out there, but you would think if that was like the fastest drop in recorded history, that's why we lost so many plants. Maybe the gnats and the stuff around, didn't have time to acclimate and it killed more of them than usual because it got below freezing, deadly cold, way further south than usual.
You're talking about the crazy cold front
Yeah.
we had back in December.
Yeah.
It killed everybody's food plots.
Yeah, what I mean, it kills all kind of people. I tell you what, I'm coming back to places that we had, just off the subject, but that killed everything, just dead. And so our clover popped back in just a few spots here and there and here and there. And because it actually was harder on the native plants, there's clover everywhere from where I didn't think we had any at all because it eliminated competition. There's so much competition with our clover and stuff all around here. So just so you know, it was harder on other stuff than our plants. The only reason I was bringing it up for this is maybe we'll see less. I don't know. We'll find out before long.
Time will tell.
We're hearing people say they've, found it already. It's kind of early for that, but it'll be interesting. It's just going to be anecdotal. I heard of a big wave in Missouri. Mark's got a lot of experience with it, and people in the Midwest. But we'll see.
So, do you know if there's any studies out there where a healthier population of deer can handle the virus better? So, like an overpopulated area that may not have quite as much food available, how are they going to handle it compared to a well-checked deer herd in good habitat? Is there a difference that you know of?
Great question.
Yeah, that is a good question. And, biological sense and conventional wisdom, you would think that would be the case. And I suggest, that it is. But to my knowledge, I don't think there's been any study confirming that. And so even within a population that may be a little more nutritionally stressed, there's still winners and losers. So, it would kind of be tough to document that. But it could be occurring at some level.
Well,
yeah.
I mean, it's obviously way more driven by regionality or further because you got people with the healthiest deer herds on the planet losing a bunch of them, but they're way further north. Mm-hmm. So I'm like Dudley. I'm thinking, malnutrition, heavily wooded summer areas without a lot of browse, and deer come out of summer looking pretty rough, ribs sticking out, that kind of thing. would they may be more? I would
would think so.
I would guess they would be. Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, but
But
not
even
in-
our deer in our deer pens. I mean, we've lost deer in our deer pens that have all they can eat and have a vet if they
Yeah.
sneeze, to treat them, and
Right.
we still lose them. So,
Okay.
yeah.
That's scary.
Harry Jacobson had a neat study years ago when he was here, and he was doing. I'm oversimplifying what all he was doing, but basically he had some deer from Michigan, and we had some native, around here Mississippi deer, and the deer. We had a bad EHD outbreak that year, and the adults that were essentially 100% northern, most all of them died. And then the offspring of where it was, say, one parent was from Michigan and one of the parents was from Mississippi, about 50-50 of those died.
Wow.
So, yeah. And so we were talking earlier, Toxie, about years ago bringing deer from up north down
Yep.
here, and that's just one of those things. Mother Nature isn't going to allow that,
Nope.
Interesting.
That just speaks to exactly what you're saying.
Unless they can develop a vaccine, which I doubt it's not enough. It takes so much money to develop a vaccine. I don't imagine it's commercially viable for deer.
Does this affect cattle?
There are hemorrhagic diseases for cattle, but the viruses, I believe, are a little bit different, and I think there's overlap. And I think when you get further south, and when I mean further south, like Central America, I think there can be some more overlap there. But generally, and I may be wrong on this, but generally in the southeast, I don't think the same viruses that affect our deer are going to affect cattle.
Growing up on a cattle farm, being around it, just a ton, but some, I've never heard of it.
Yeah.
Do you remember when EHD was first documented in deer?
I don't remember the year, but I remember the story. EHD, that was actually the impetus for the creation of the Southeastern Cooperative Wildlife Disease Study. And so us biologist nerds, you might hear us always talking about squidus. We got to send some samples to squidus.
Yep.
That's the Southeastern Cooperative Wildlife Disease Study at the University of Georgia. That was largely formed to identify this mystery killer, and it was actually termed Killer X. We don't know what is killing all these deer and here and there and year to
Wow.
year, what's going on, and got these people that they have some wildlife training, but they're also veterinarians and they're also experts in wildlife diseases. And that is what formulated that group that's still here today. And all of the state agencies contribute money every single year to keep that organization going, and they take samples for EHD and blue tongue every single year. On their website, they chart out where they found it and so forth. So, and I believe that was in the 60s, doesn't it?
Okay.
So does somebody put out a bulletin and say, okay, we're starting to see it over here in Georgia or wherever, just to alert the different DNRs?
Yeah, I would say that on a regional scale, that would be that group SCWIDUS located at the University of Georgia, and then also your state wildlife agency. Like I would be, if I was concerned, William McKinley here in Mississippi would be the contact for that.
Yeah. Wow. Well, it's a complicated story to what's going on here, and so I think it's very timely that we're talking about this right now. And a guy, look, Mark Drury, we talk about, we love Mark Drury. I called him yesterday, and Bronson, he's had a lot of experience with EHD.
Oh, yeah.
So we got him to record a little bit. Richie, could we play that for the guys? All right, guys. So now, we love Mark Drury.
Yeah, he's one of our own, in my opinion.
And he's definitely, and he's arguably maybe the best deer hunter out there.
I tell you, I don't know anybody that kills as big a deer on a consistent basis as he does, and does an unbelievable job, not only managing the habitat but managing pressure. And I mean, he's got it down to a science.
Yeah, the whole team of them,
Yeah,
for sure.
unbelievable.
So before we bring him on, I just want to say I've known him for a long time. Lanny, you have as well.
Yeah.
But I can remember all these years being around him in the summertime when we were filming different shows and stuff. And he's got these relationships with bucks. And
Oh, yeah.
I mean,
Long term, that's
relationships
right.
with bucks. And so an EHD would hit and he would lose one.
Yeah.
And it'd be like he losing a relative.
Yeah, it would.
It would hit him so hard. But
I mean, you
don't-
think about that though. as a whitetail ages, you get more vested in him, and then for him just to wake up one day and not be there, it's just pretty disheartening.
Yeah. So look, can we hit the horns for Mark Drury,
The
please?
Mark Drury in the house.
There we go, Mark.
Man,
there you
how's
go,
that going?
Mark.
Hey guys, how are you doing today, man? Thanks for having me on.
Absolutely.
We're always glad to have you, Mark.
Yeah.
So you kind of we're talking about EHD, and look, for as long as I've known you, I've heard you kind of fussing about it, and it seems like it's affected you guys in a big way some years. And could you just tell us your Midwest perspective on it?
Man, that's a big, long drawn out talk over a cold beer or two, really. I mean, it's I don't know how to describe, what's going on up here. Since really my first experience with it was 1998. And actually, it dates back prior to that. It was back in the mid 80s, and I didn't know what had happened in our county there in St. Genevieve County. All I knew was that there weren't nearly as many deer one year as there had been in previous years, and no one really knew what happened. And then in 98, I bought a farm up in Iowa. I actually bought it in 97, and I sold Mad, the game call company, in 97. And I was talking to Jay Gregory and Don Kiske, and they were telling me about a farm that could possibly be sold, and that was October of 97. And I went and looked at it, and I mean, it was the most unbelievable deer sign I'd ever seen in my life. And I bought that farm with the proceeds that I had from the Mad sale. And I bought part of it and leased part of it, and all total, it was a couple thousand acres. And by August of the following year, I mean, they were all dead. I mean,
man, what a bummer.
It was unbelievable. I bet I lost 90% of that herd. And it was just coincidental that I purchased it in October of 97. I couldn't even hunt it that first year because I didn't have a non-resident tag. And or I had a tag, but it wasn't in that zone. That's what it was. I mean, the trails were like motocross. There were rubs the size of my thigh all through this farm. And Jay and Don were right. It was an incredible piece of property, which is now the farm that David Lindsay owns. Okay. It's a set. So I'm talking about that farm.
Yeah, Hercules.
Yeah, there's a little specimen right there on the wall.
You've been there. I guess that deer came from there.
Yeah, that's right, Hercules.
Okay, so it's that farm. That's
He jumped off some property. They said that's Mark's right there. He jumped a fence and
bye-ya! There goes Bobby.
Exactly, right. Yeah, that fence goes both ways. So. But that's the story behind that piece of dirt. Jay and Don originally told me about that. They called it the Miracle Mile. That gravel road that now runs by David and Jeff's house, they called that the Miracle Mile. They drive through there and there was giants, crossing the road during the rut. Anyway, I bought it, and the next year, I mean, they were all dead. And that was the most severe die-off I withstood up there. But since then, we've lost them a multitude of times. We lost them in 08. We lost them big time in 12 and 13. Between 12 and 13, I think we lost, the herd had rebuilt by then, and we lost 60-70% of the herd.
Wow.
And then we had another die-off in 19, and we had a die-off this past year in 22. And it's just unreal to me. But a few things that I've learned about it. Number one, I try to keep my population much lower to try and avoid those massive die-offs, because it spreads deer to deer through a vector of midge fly. Whether that helps or not, I don't know, but I do think it helps the overall health of the herd and helps them, rebound from it. I also, in the years that I feel like I'm threatened with it, like this year, we're under a major drought right now. We're so dry, it's unbelievable. The driest I've seen it since 2012. I really, really believe in my soul that analogic supplement gold helps. And I've got a mix that I feed on the farm, and it will not stop EHD, the virus itself, but it will stop off many of the secondary infections that they get because of EHD. And on top of that, there's really, you say, or many people say, well, it happens in a drought year. Well, I've seen terrible outbreaks in wet years as well. So I think it has to do with when those midges hatch, how dry you are specifically in July and August, how wet you were throughout the spring, particularly May and June. So if you have a very wet spring, May and June, and all those water puddles fill up, and then all of a sudden you get dry in July and August, that's a terrible equation. I've seen massively dry years where we didn't have any EHD. So it's very hard to explain and very hard to predict, but it does seem to follow years where it seems to occur in years where there's quite a drought up here. I talk to guys north of me up in Minnesota that never get it. I talk to guys down there. You guys were talking before we went on about just not seeing much of it in the Southeast. And it's a real kick in the tail up here because it's something we live with day in and day out.
I wonder why it's so pronounced up there where you guys live. Is there any insight into that? Any thoughts?
I don't know, other than I guess we used to not have it much, and it has made its way. I guess the Southeast used to have it quite a bit, and through time, there's an immunity that has developed through the herd in the Southeast. And I'm told perhaps in 100 years or more, that same type of immunity will occur here in the Midwest as it occurs more and more. But I don't know that to be true. That's some of the things that I've heard from biologists that I know, and Dr. Strickland could probably speak more to that.
Yeah, we've heard similar things. It's, like down here, they've just historically gotten it more, and therefore they're able to fend it off better. They get it, but they live through it. Whereas, up around Mark's territory, they don't seem to live through it as easily as they do here in the South. I remember that 12, 13 year watching you guys on TV and everybody else, and they'd be sitting in the stand and say, like, well, we lost all our deer, so we don't know if we're going to see anything this after. You saw a lot of that activity, and that was sad, especially when that's you guys' livelihood,
Mm-hmm. So Mark, from what you used to say, that it really has a major effect on the older deer, the older bucks.
Yeah, it definitely takes out a lot of the older bucks. It's much greater on bucks than it is does based on what we could tell. And I have a few theories about that. Like a lot of times when it occurs is in the summer, those bucks are in bachelor groups. So I think it naturally travels through that bachelor group a lot easier and quicker because they're together. Whereas your doe groups are often separated out with their fawns. So they're not together in a group that time of the year when it hits. That's my own theory. I don't know if that's true or not. That's just the way I feel about it. But boy, it's bad when it hits, and it's so tough on the animals. I've seen it kill them immediately. You find them dead in the pond, and they just burn up from the inside based on what the disease does to them. And I've also seen them suffer all the way through the fall when they get all of the secondary infections that come with the EHD, and you'll find them dead in October, November, December. This past year, we found a bunch of dead shed bucks, and I know it was leftover infections from EHD, and it wreaks havoc up through here. It's devastating. But all that being said, in and of itself will keep the population low. And the silver lining to a severe EHD outbreak, about 4 to 6, 7 years later, when those fawns, the next group of fawns, grow up to be 5, 6-year-old deer or mature deer, they've grown up with less social stress than, say, a different pocket or a different slice in time. And when that occurs, we see our largest, most healthy, beautiful bucks that we've ever seen. So fewer deer equals healthier deer, and oftentimes equals bigger deer. So there is a silver lining to it. It's not fun going through it, but fast forward a few years and you'll see some of the biggest deer you've ever seen in the Midwest after those EHD outbreaks have occurred.
That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
So there's no way to say it's like a cycle. You're going to get it every third year or something. It could happen back to back.
There's a randomness to it, and there's a pocket nature to it. Like I've seen guys have 60, 70% die-offs, and 10 miles away, you don't lose a deer. So it's very pockety. And because of that, oh goodness, many years ago, 12, 15 years ago, I used to own a big farm. It was the one that David and Jeff own now. I own like 15 farms now. Most of them are small, but they're spread out geographically 75 miles from north to south and about 30 or 40 miles east to west for that very reason, as an insurance policy against EHD.
Like a mutual fund of deer properties.
Diversify.
That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense.
So if they're
It's
dying
all
off in
about
one
position.
pocket, you may
And-
be good 5 miles away.
Exactly. And through time, I've been watching it, and not just EHD, but just like hunting pressure and so many different variables that determine what your overall population dynamic is and how many bucks are coming up through. It's amazing to watch one farm have an incredible year, and then the next 2 or 3 years it not be that great, but yet you're hunting somewhere else, so you're giving it time for those bucks to mature. I've got a farm like that now. Last year it was the best farm we had, and through a variety of different reasons, we lost buck after buck after buck. Neighbors, bucks getting locked up, a couple wounded bucks that died later in the winter, some EHD hit. We went from like 7 mature bucks on 400 acres, and this year we think we have 1 or 2 because we lost so many of them. And I think that's just a slice of time last year on 400 acres. But in reality, I think we probably deal with these cycles all the time. I can now not pay much attention to that farm going forward because I know it needs a couple years to heal. But it's amazing the dynamics of a population as you watch it through time, not just because of EHD, because natural mortality is tougher on bucks in general anyway.
So is the midge, the gnat, is it actually a carrier disease, or is it biting an infected EHD deer and then transmitting it to another one?
I believe that it carries it, and I think sometimes it goes from cattle to deer and then from deer to deer based on what I've read. And again, Dr. Strickland would have to speak to those types of things, but those are some of the things that I've read. But I believe the midge is the vector that transmits it from deer to deer, or whatever the host is, to the deer.
Right.
So, Mark, I hear that a lot of times these hot summer stagnant mud puddles are what the midges breed in. Do you go to efforts to try to fill in those and make sure there's not any of those type scenarios on your farms?
We do. I've run insecticidal pucks in our ponds. I've sprayed. I've done all that stuff, and with not much success. One thing we have tried to do is go to our ponds that have those, they silt in through the year. So therefore, when the water recedes, you have this big flat mud area. And I've gone around and, try to bucket those out so the edges are more steep and you don't have that big wide swath of mud laying there when they dry out. But I don't know if any of that stuff is helping or not. The one thing that I do believe in is Supplement Gold, because they've got the equation in there to try and help them through that.
Yeah. So the guy at Analogics that you referred to, he was a veterinarian, if I'm not mistaken. So there's certainly some science in what they're trying to do there.
Well, he's a vet, and he created the initial vaccine for EHD in captive herds. I mean, he's the guy that came up with the vaccine, Wayne Freeze. But now they've given that to them in an oral form, and it's not a vaccine, but they do give them all of the health components they need to ward off those secondary diseases and infections.
That makes a lot of sense. Us as humans are becoming, we're using more of those holistic type.
Oh yeah.
And what you eat, it makes you more healthy, and you can fend things off better. That makes a lot of sense. And I mean, the midge lives in a watery environment, but deer also have to drink water. So,
Yeah.
Like Mark was saying, they tried all these things where you decrease the slope or increase the slope to where it went from dry to wet more quickly, and all these other things, putting those BT pucks in the water that's just a mosquito dump, and they didn't have a lot of luck with it. But
Well, the first time the wind blows out of the south, you get a whole new batch of midges, right?
Yeah.
So it's it's hard to control Mother Nature. It really is. We try to, but in reality, she's doing what she's done for thousands of years. So.
exactly.
All right, Mark, we sure appreciate it.
Yeah,
All
thanks
the
for what you
things
do.
that Drury
Yeah.
Outdoors does. We're so proud to be associated with you guys.
That feeling's mutual. We love y'all.
All right, you take care.
Thanks
you,
for your
Mark.
time, Mark.
Appreciate
Have
you,
a
buddy.
good one.
Anytime.
Bronson, you listen to him talk. He's had a lot of experience with it.
Absolutely.
All that makes sense to you. His
sure did.
anecdotal evidence. He studied it pretty hard.
Yeah, yeah. I think he's spot on. I liked some of the things he said, which there's really no product. I may be paraphrasing, but his words, that there's no product that's going to, with certainty, eliminate the possibility. But there may be some way of a supplementation that it may be possible to help them live through the symptoms or things like that. So, there's always that possibility. I also just wonder if you just have a healthy deer herd, Toxie, like you were saying earlier, if they're not already stressed, physiologically stressed, I think it'd be the exact same way with humans. We're going to be able to confront viruses better and our immune system deal with it better if we're not stressed. So, yeah, it made a lot of sense.
It's a wicked way of nature doing things, but I had to pull my headphones off for a minute, so I didn't hear all that, but he may have addressed it. But I do remember him saying, now I'm not speaking to that first one that was so devastating, but when he has these dives, I can remember him saying, boy, but the good news is 2 years later, the quality of our herd just blossoms a bunch. Yeah. So it's kind of like, it's sad, but nature's way, if it doesn't get out of hand, might be
and isn't that
helping you out a little bit.
Isn't that the same story when we deal with flooding on the Mississippi River the next year or two?
You just hate to wipe out stuff en masse like that.
Yeah.
It did mirror what you said because, he was trying to give us solid information based on just his own personal, observations, whatever. But it was consistent, pretty much. And he said, as far as wet years, dry years, man, it seems to be no rhyme or reason. It seems like when we have really wet years, but then it turns off into a drought, it's the worst. Well, that would make sense because you said they have to have mud, not water, and not dry ground, but mud. So if you had a really wet year to start with and then it dried out, you would have a lot more mud. And that made sense to what you were talking about.
Yeah, that's consistent.
Really wet and then a drought. Because if you had, and then he said, we've had years when it was just super drought for a long period and we didn't have any of it. So it really, it flowed, it paralleled what he was telling us earlier.
So, cuz you've been around deer a long time, and when you were doing the Hunt in the Country television show, you traveled all out in the Midwest and the Dakotas. Did any of your trips ever get impacted by EHD?
We had one in Nebraska, and we had already scheduled it. And the guy called me and said, "Look, we've had an EHD breakout or whatever up there," and he said, "We're not seeing many deer." I said, "We'll come anyway. I'm pretty lucky." We had 2 camera guys and 2 hunters, and it was like I think we sat there mornings and afternoons 4 days, and finally saw one buck that was limping and didn't look good. I can remember, man, if that happens down home, I don't know what we would do. But yes, that one was in Nebraska, and it was about 10 years ago, probably in that. Maybe that 2012, 2011 that Mark was talking about, and it was horrific. And it took them, I think it took them a lot longer. I talk to the guy all the time. It took them 2, 3, 4 years to get back up where they wanted to offer their hunting to the general public. But,
Toxie, in all your years down in the Choctaw Bluff area, did you as a kid, you remember encountering anything like that?
Not really. The first time we encountered it was at a farm in Sumter County a little bit, but it was never real prevalent. I do remember overpopulation where I grew up hunting in Clark County, and their issue was like liver flukes. It had gotten to be so prevalent, and they were cutting livers, and I still do it now, and you see them, but not in every deer, and not like Swiss cheese in the liver. But that was their big thing with the overpopulated herd, and say that whatever the 70s was the just overrun with these liver flukes.
What will a liver fluke do, Bronson?
It just compromises the function of the liver. I'm sorry, I can't give you any more.
Which will kill you.
I wiggled out of that one, didn't I?
Did. It depends.
Well, it makes sense that if you had a little bit of it, it was normal and it could live and they didn't necessarily pass it. But if it got so prevalent, liver function starts to cease, you cease.
Sure. Well, so visibly from the outside, can you look at a deer and say, well, he's probably got liver flukes?
I can't, no.
No. The ones I saw, no. I mean, occasionally you could say, and I watched a cut up on a bunch of them, but for the most part, you don't know till you cut them open.
Yeah.
But that was probably an overpopulated, stressed herd.
Absolutely. Yeah. And that was their issue, was they were overpopulated, and they did spread it because of overpopulation. Now, I don't know what causes the fluke or whatever, but that's the one thing I do remember they were worried about, and it was killing some deer.
I don't recollect. I've killed deer that had the sloughed hooves in the past, but I don't recollect ever having, a couple of years where you never see any deer or anything like
never
that.
never that. No.
We hear about people finding a dead deer in a pond, and then you get it tested or whatever, and it is in fact EHD. But yeah, I've never noticed a serious die-off. Now,
I'm familiar with two properties from here in Mississippi last year, and one was very close to where we're at now. I think they documented 15 or 16 deer in ponds and creeks on this 800-ish acre property, and one down south, south of Meridian, same thing. Noticed a couple deer during their camera surveys were in really poor condition, and I mean really poor condition. And then they got to looking more, started walking the creeks and so forth, and found, 8 or 10 more. So, but we just don't, kind of like where we started, but we don't see that 50, 60, 70% die-off. So again, we're confronted with it every single year, and some years a strain of it may be worse. Or it may be a blue tongue strain versus the EHD strain. But it's just not going to devastate a southern deer herd like it will in the Midwest.
well, hopefully in time the Midwest herd will become more accustomed to it.
Yeah.
The worst thing in our world is like you've got a place, or even on a club or whatever, you've got this certain deer that you've let grow up, and then you find them dead because of it. That's probably more likely to be your heartbreak than losing too much of your deer herd. In most places, most places probably don't shoot enough deer.
Right.
Anyway, so.
Ross, you've done a great job explaining this. I've actually learned several things about this that I didn't know. But is there anything else is there a question that you said, boy, these knuckleheads, I hope they'll ask me this?
Yeah, he's been answering entomology questions and virology.
Poorly. I don't think so. I think you've covered it very well. At least the stuff I'm used to answering. I think you've covered it all.
So yeah, I just want to make sure that is there even anything you can do as a landowner, as a club member, making decisions about your area and your deer herd. I mean, I guess what you're telling us is don't worry about it so much in the South, but in other areas, is there anything at all, can you watch for it? Can you help it? I mean, it's almost like nobody wants to lose 90%, and that's not healthy. But it's almost like you just can't change what Mother Nature is going to do sometimes. And so maybe there's not. I mean, other than, someone developing a vaccine.
Think about that for a second, Bronson. I'm going to look at Cuz. And Cuz, you're on the board of the National Deer Association.
That's right, formerly QDMA.
Did they have any kind of information they put out that guys could go search for and learn more about?
Yeah, they got some of the best biologists around, Kip Adams and those kind of guys. Their main focus right now, I'm assuming, is CWD. They do so much. They're way down those rabbit holes right now. There's EHD information on there, but I don't think they don't know any more than.
Have you experienced it on your farm? But
the only thing I have on my farm that kills deer is TMG, which is too many grandkids. They will absolutely wear them out. But I have never seen any EHD out there.
Yeah, I'm sure any of the land grant universities like Mississippi State or any of these places like QDMA could share publications with you that you can learn from.
The way I'm going to manage the disease is I'm going to manage my deer herd so that it's not overpopulated, that my deer are in good condition. I'm going to manage the habitat, that my deer herd is thriving and growing and managed. And then, if we have an outbreak of EHD, that's about like trying to predict and avoid a tornado. I mean, it's just going to happen, and there's not much we can do about that.
Yeah.
But the thing about EHD, remember, it's a 1-year cycle. You get to start over the next year, and now you even have some immunity to it. So that year is going to really stink, and depending on the population dynamics around you, it may take 3 years to get back, like you were saying, Cuz, 3 to 5. But for most people around here, literally next year, you're not going to know you had an outbreak.
All right.
That's good. Now, I want to ask a question. And is there anything going on with the wild hogs in the USDA that you can talk about? I hear rumors that there's some trials on some poisons, and it's all rumor, but it sounds very encouraging too. You may not be able, I'm sure you're in the know, you may not be able to talk about it, but is there anything that you can say?
It's referring to toxicants. I think that's what you're talking about. Yeah, that is still being researched. It's just the devil is in the details on non-targets. There's one particular toxicant, the sodium nitrite and so forth. It is very, very effective. Zero question of how effective it is. It's how do you deliver it in a way that is most likely going to kill hogs and not the non-targets. Yeah. That's what makes it so difficult in getting it registered and licensed. Imagine the sensitivity we have, I've heard y'all talk about with turkeys. You kill a sounder of pigs, but also kill 15 turkeys or something like that. Yep. That hurts your feelings.
Yeah, one non-target. I mean, it's literally, you just have to have that. From a legality standpoint, I get it. And say the non-target's not even a hunting, I don't care. It's not fair to that other non-target species. Yeah. So, yep.
And if you're in bear country, it makes it even more difficult. Coming up with a delivery device that a bear can't get into is tough.
Guess what? Bear country's changing because we actually saw one here for the first time. Neil saw the first one documented in Clay County about 2 years ago, and for sure, you know.
That's exciting.
So,
I, when you know something, please, we have you seem to find your way over here pretty
if
frequently.
you need, and if they need, like, if there's like a research test facility needed and they need a volunteer landowner, just go ahead and count me. I'll sign up right now. So ahead of time. And I've got plenty to sample.
Dudley, did you do any rapid fires for Bronson?
I didn't this time.
Okay. We do have one trivia question we could ask you.
Oh, boy.
And one of our listeners could win a prize based on your knowledge here. This one's it's just going to be easy for you, I think. Richie, can you help?
All right, here we are. You're playing for Fields Bay VT. So a listener there, and the prize is a Groundhog Max.
That Groundhog Max, it goes behind an ATV. Have y'all seen these things? Just a little small disc, and then the weight. When you get on the ATV, it kind of pushes it down in the ground.
A great way to easily create a disturbance or disc up a little plot. It can be used for all kinds of things, but it's just so convenient. When you're not in the mood if you don't have a tractor or if you're not in the mood to take one implement off and put another one on, you can just put it on your bike, go to town.
GroundhogMax.com. We need to get you one of those, Bronson.
I'll take two.
Yeah. Okay, and so we're playing for the guy's name is Fields Bay VT. Is that for Virginia Tech, do you think?
He's a Hokie?
I don't know. I saw that. But
Vermont.
Yeah,
could be Vermont. Yeah. Hey, look at Cuz. There we go.
Hey, you never know.
All right.
All right, because you can help him out here too. So, true or false? Do baby owlets commonly sleep on their stomachs because they can't support their weight of their enormous heads? True or false?
Hey, why did y'all have an enormous head question when I'm on the panel down there? I'm crying foul. No pun.
I'm gonna point that to Bobby on that because he helps out with the questions.
Yeah, well, just trying to stump Bronson.
I'm gonna say false. Or maybe I should say true.
Good answer.
Yeah, according to Wikipedia, they do. Yeah, one of those did you know kind of scenarios that when they're very small, their heads are so heavy.
Hey, I could answer that from just personal experience, but I didn't want to jump in on top of it.
Is that what you tell all your students, is to look everything up on Wikipedia?
Yeah, that's the source
That's
right
what I
there.
thought.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Good one.
Yeah, that was a good one. So, Bayfields VT, get in touch, and we'll get you that Groundhog Max sent to you. We need to get some door prizes from Mississippi State. Maybe some tuition or some books or something.
How about a cowbell?
Yeah.
How about a cap or a cowbell? I can probably come up with that better than tuition.
The tree ID books, I wonder if those still exist.
Yeah. Yeah.
I want to compete for one of those.
All right.
It would be good to have.
That would be awesome.
So when we look around, we always, Bronson, we end this thing, we usually ask, what did we learn? I had no idea that this started kind of in the South, and I don't know the right word, but somehow it travels north. I didn't know that's how it worked. So learned that. I also learned the word pockety. Mark said that. I didn't know that word. Dudley, what about you?
Well, to mention another podcast that we've had, nature is metal, but there is a pot of gold at the end of the rainbow. It's sad, but it's helping the population thrive for the few years after that, and hopefully in time they'll develop more immunities to it, more tolerance.
Cuz?
Yeah, I heard the best analogy ever when Dr. Bronson said, I take care of these deer. You can do the habitat, you can do the herd, but it's just like a tornado. If Mother Nature puts her mind to it, ain't nothing you can do, and you shouldn't worry about that because there's nothing you can do. That was a great analogy. That's what stuck out to me.
Yep.
Do some squirrel hunting instead.
Yeah, and I mean, there's going to be people offer up things, and as long as you're not damaging anything else or hurting anything else and you want to give it a shot, sure, I mean, whatever. But just be careful because as far as science that's proven, there is no way to stop it or treat it or otherwise. So, like, first thing out of his mouth when he got through, habitat, herds under the carrying capacity, a healthy herd will do more than anything.
Yeah. Yep. Well, Bronson, that's what you guys preach all the time. We don't talk about growing big deer. We talk about growing a healthy deer herd.
A healthy, thriving herd. Yeah. And then let the chips fall where they may.
That sounds good. Well, does anybody else have anything to add? Toxie, you look like you're fixing to bolt out the door as soon as we get this one with. Cuz, thank you for being here.
Hey, I appreciate it. Like I said, I was delivering barbecue sauce and got lassoed by the big guy and was glad because I learned something in here today, I can promise you. This podcast is way different than our other one, A Fistful of Dirt. I just had a guy on there and we talked about barbecue sauce for an hour and 10 minutes.
Well, that's an incredibly good subject to talk about.
It is.
Yeah.
He brought me some barbecue sauce from that guy, and ironically, I just had a fetish over the weekend for getting back into cooking barbecue. Bought some ribs, bought a Boston butt, was fixing to, and I was unhappy with my choices at the grocery store, wondering what to do, and he just literally out of the blue said, "Hey, I got you some homemade barbecue sauce."
Divine intervention.
It was.
Yeah, it's good stuff. He'll be my guest next week.
I'm firing up my grill tonight.
Yep.
Is that right? Wow. Bronson, maybe you'll get a call. I don't know.
Yeah, we'll see. I mean, I like a rib every now and again, too.
Just one rib? What movie was that? Anyway.
So, Bronson, where can guys follow you? Dr. Bronson Strickland, you're Mississippi State University, the Extension Department.
Yeah, just MSU Deer Lab on all the social media platforms, Facebook, Instagram. We're really building our YouTube channel, MSU Deer Lab TV, so we're putting a lot of videos on there as well. So, and a website. So literally, MSU Deer Lab in Google, and those platforms will pop up.
Is it true that you stay up at night answering the questions on that page?
Personally.
It is true. I have stayed up some nights. Yeah. I can't do it every night. I mean, I got to sleep sometime. But yeah, I do that in the evening. I sure do.
Can I say something about Mississippi State? It has nothing to do with EHD or any of this other stuff. But while Bronson's sitting here, I made a post the other day about my youngest grandson, Ben, a.k.a. Cranky, who was diagnosed dyslexic when he was 5 or 6 years old. They thought it was a behavioral problem. Lucky those teachers caught him. He went to Mississippi State. They have the best program ever. He went 2 days a week for 5 years and never missed a session, and now he's on the AB honor roll.
Wow.
And those teachers, he was the second kid to go all the way through, and they had a graduation party for him over there the other day.
That's incredible.
Mississippi State is a special place.
It really is.
How about that?
Yeah.
One of the smartest people I know is one of my cousins.
Oh, I thought you were going to say. I thought you were going to say Bronson.
And he is extremely dyslexic.
Yeah.
So
My mom.
Cranky's different. I can tell you that, but he is.
My mom's pretty smart. She's severely dyslexic, actually.
It's a unique thing, but we all got to know everybody, and it's just an amazing place.
That's good to hear.
Yeah, it's good. It's a good place. So.
That is. Bronson, we don't hear that much good stuff about you, but we hear a lot about Mississippi State. So.
That's fair.
What about Steve Damaris? How's he?
He's doing fantastic. Yeah. He's been traveling around. He was out west last week at a CWD conference, so we had some research we were sharing with that and learning. And
So he got to go out west, and you stayed in the office.
well, I did go to the Gulf of Mexico.
Oh, that's true.
Yeah.
Okay, good.
Yeah. No, but he's doing great. Thanks for asking.
Good. Good. Well, we appreciate you traveling over. This has been informative. I think
Yeah,
we all
and
learned
I just
something.
in closing, encourage all the people that follow us, and because I read the remarks. People love getting information about working on their place more than anything we do. Any entertainment value we bring them or anything. So if you're searching through everything we have, and we have a lot, and especially on Mossy Oak Go, it's unbelievable. Don't miss out on going to all the stuff he mentioned at Mississippi State, because it's coming straight from the horse's mouth, science-wise, from them. And they've been behind the scenes, top flight, whitetail, university for a very, very long time.
Yeah.
Very long time.
Thank you, Toxie.
Yes.
Appreciate that.
Hey, it's true. But what Joe Namath said that about football. Hey, if it's true, it ain't bragging.
That's true. All right, that's good. Well, we're really proud of what y'all are doing, and as we travel around, we really do hear a lot of people in other states are bragging about you guys.
Well, thanks so much.
They really are.
That's very
well
gratifying
thought
to
of.
hear. Appreciate that.
Yeah, sure thing. All right, well, I guess that's about it. Why don't you say goodbye, Dudley?
Goodbye, Dudley.
Thanks for tuning in to this week's episode of the Gamekeeper Podcast, and be sure to tune in again. Subscribe to Gamekeeper Farming for Wildlife magazine, and don't miss the Mossy Oak Properties Fistful of Dirt podcast with my good buddy, Ronnie Cuz Strickland.